For over 70 years, Japan stood by the United States, investing in American factories, creating over 800,000 U.S. jobs, and aligning closely on defense, trade, and technology. But now, in 2025, that trust is crumbling. Crippling tariffs, mounting political pressure, and economic decisions that feel more like threats than policy. Is this the beginning of a global power shift, or the breakdown of one of the world's strongest alliances? Stay tuned. And if you're serious about understanding global economics and power plays, hit subscribe and tap the bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. The cracks in a 70-year partnership. For decades, Japan and the U.S. moved in lockstep, partners in trade and security. Japan opened its markets to American companies, hosted tens of thousands of U.S. troops, and collaborated on everything from missile defense to electric cars. In return, Japan expected stability, respect, and partnership. But 2025 tells a different story. Tokyo now feels betrayed. And the blame? Many point squarely at Washington. What went wrong? Japan's economic contributions ignored. Japan is one of the top foreign investors in the United States. Through brands like Toyota, Honda, Nissan, and Mitsubishi, Japan has supported over 800,000 American jobs. Japanese automakers didn't just ship cars, they built factories across America. States like Texas, Kentucky, and Alabama became hubs of Japanese innovation. And yet, Washington responded not with gratitude, but with tariffs. The Trump administration branded Japanese cars a national security threat and proposed tariffs of 25 to 30%. To Tokyo, this wasn't just economic policy, it was punishment. At a time when Japan's economy is already strained, the U.S. piled on more pressure, demanding Japan cut off high-tech semiconductor exports to China, targeting Japanese agricultural imports, and quietly pressuring Tokyo behind closed doors. The message felt clear. The U.S. no longer sees Japan as a trusted partner, but as leverage. Japan's leaders respond, unacceptable. Japan isn't staying quiet. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba called the tariffs deeply disappointing and warned of a national crisis. Chief trade negotiator Ryos Akazawa said flatly, the tariffs must be reconsidered. Finance Minister Katsunobu Kato warned the measures could destabilize global markets. Even the Bank of Japan noted a weakening outlook due to U.S. pressure. Behind the scenes, Tokyo is signaling it's ready to push back economically and politically. Japan's investments in the U.S. are vast. If they begin pulling back, the fallout could hit Wall Street, American workers, and the U.S. budget hard. How the U.S. sees it: fairness or friction? From Washington's side, officials argue this isn't betrayal, it's balance. They claim Japanese automakers benefit from currency advantages, U.S. brands face barriers entering Japan's market. Tariffs are about protecting national security and leveling a skewed trade relationship, especially with the EV and autonomous vehicle revolution underway. The U.S. says it's fighting for a future where American companies don't fall behind. But Tokyo isn't buying it. Japan insists trade talks will go nowhere until the U.S. backs off the tariffs. For the first time in years, Japan is taking a hard line, and it's shaking the foundation of U.S.-Japan relations, a trusted ally treated like a rival. This isn't just about cars or rice. It's about how America treats its allies. For years, Japan backed U.S. policies, hosted U.S. troops, and followed Washington's lead on global issues. Now, it feels blindsided, caught between two global giants, the U.S. on one side and China's aggressive EV and chip industries on the other. Japan is under pressure from both directions. If Japanese cars become more expensive due to tariffs, they'll lose ground in the U.S. And at the same time, China is flooding global markets with heavily subsidized electric vehicles. The chip war and strategic pressure. The stakes are even higher when you factor in technology. Japan produces cutting-edge equipment essential for semiconductor manufacturing, especially for legacy chips used in cars, electronics, and even defense. The US wants Japan to stop selling that equipment to China. In fact, Congress recently sent an urgent private letter to Japan's ambassador demanding action, signaling just how critical and secretive this issue has become. Why? Because the US fears China is building secret chip factories through companies like Huawei, and Washington is pressuring allies to help stop it, even at their own expense. The message to Tokyo: pick a side, support Washington, or risk the consequences. Japan's dilemma: obey or push back. Japan now faces a crossroads. Cave to US demands, stop selling chips to China, and hope the tariffs are lifted. Or stand firm, protect its tech exports, and risk US retaliation. Either path has consequences: political, economic, and diplomatic. Japan could also pursue a third option: shift its trade focus to Southeast Asia, Europe, or expand domestic industries to become less export-reliant. What's clear is this: Japan is no longer putting all its eggs in the American basket. Strategic moves, quiet but calculated. Japan isn't shouting, it's acting. Nissan cut production of its Rogue model in Kyushu by 13,000 units, anticipating tariff fallout. Toyota redirected EV investments to Thailand. Mazda announced a $150 million EV expansion in Southeast Asia. And Toyota made a bold move: a $2 billion EV plant in Shanghai, China. Moves that would have been unthinkable years ago are now the new normal. US factories losing priority. The shift won't happen overnight, but the signs are already here. New Japanese vehicle models are being assigned to non-US plants. Expansion plans, once centered around American states, are now heading to Vietnam, Indonesia, and Thailand. The message is loud and clear. Japan no longer sees the US as a stable manufacturing base. The bigger picture: a global realignment. This is about more than cars or semiconductors. It's about trust and whether the US can still count on its allies. If Japan, a top-tier partner, is treated like a trade adversary, what message does that send to others? South Korea, the Philippines, India, who's next? This could open the door for China to gain influence in the region, offering trade deals with fewer strings attached. Tariffs that backfire. Ironically, the US. Tariffs may end up hurting American workers the most. The vehicles being targeted are largely built in the US by American workers, using parts sourced through trade agreements like NAFTA and USMCA. Higher costs equals lower sales equals factory cutbacks equals job losses. It's a domino effect, and it's already begun. The road ahead. So, what's next for Japan and the global auto industry? Japanese automakers are pivoting fast, embracing EV production in Asia and beyond, while quietly reducing their US footprint. The decline in US-based Japanese production is underway, and it will ripple through supply chains, job markets, and local economies. This isn't just a trade disagreement. This is a strategic shift, a wake-up call for the US. Because if Washington loses Japan, it may not just lose a partner. It could lose a pillar of its global economic power. This is Travel Talk, breaking down global alliances and economic stories that matter. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and tell us in the comments. Is the US playing too hard with its allies, or just defending its future? Thanks for watching.